Hello, this is Daniel Raymond, the voice behind Ray's Guide, and this will be another collection of commentaries too short to each be their own video. The first is the rocky launch of 3.18. I am probably the last Star Citizen content creator on the planet to say something about this, and the reason why is because I usually try to have something unique to add to the discussion, and my personal rule on this channel is not to complain without offering something about how to do it better. And in the middle of the crisis, just saying, hey, it's borked and you gotta fix this, doesn't really count as either, and profoundly unhelpful in a crisis. But now that the crisis is subsiding, a more thoughtful examination is appropriate. The first is that for those of us really following the project, this shouldn't have been as much of a surprise as it was. Yes, we were in general warned that this was going to be a huge release, but we also had specific clues to it as well. We aren't supposed to get leaked patch notes of NDA builds, but they happen anyway, and we know from those that the patch notes for 3.18 entered Evocati way later than expected and spent a long time in Evocati. We also know it spent way longer than we would have expected in Wave 1 PTU, and also way longer than would have been expected in Open PTU. We went all the way through the alphabet and then dozens more on Beyond Zebra. 3.18 was having a rough childhood even beyond the already warned about expectations. And troublesome patches frequently have troublesome migrations and launches. Migrations are not a simple matter, and those that swap out the entire data later, the work. And then at the end, when the Thursday release became the Friday release, it should have been the final clue to have your seatbelts fastened. So sure, if you're a Kotaku or a PC gamer or Ars Technica who only looks at this game when something pops up on their radar, sure, it was surprising. But the rest of us content creators who actually follow things daily, it shouldn't have been. So this brings me to the what to do better part. Because certainly 3.18.1 won't be this difficult of a childhood, nor does it look like 3.19 would be either. But 4.0, even if it doesn't contain both pyro and meshing, has the definite potential to be a rough migration and launch too. So how to do it better is not just an academic exercise. Originating in the hospitality industry, but now spreading well beyond it, is a practice called the soft launch. In it, you open the, say, restaurant, but don't in any way hang out the grand opening banner. Of course, in the internet era, word of the soft launch is going to fly at light speed, so the response will be similar, but the expectations will be less, and forgiveness greater, and therefore the embarrassment of it less. That's the whole point. And the grand opening banner doesn't get hung out until the chef and the maitre d' each agree that their sides of the restaurant are ready for it. But the CIG marketing department went instant full launch, hard launch, with an announcement post and flashy promotional videos and ship sales. That set the expectations high, and therefore the disappointment even higher, and a lot of eggs run a lot of faces. So that's my 4-word suggestion about big releases like this in the future. Soft launch the live. So essentially, having commented on the introduction of the recent Inside Star Citizen, I will go ahead and talk about the main body of it, modular mission system. And the first thing that I was disappointed that they went with the cheap giggles over actually informing us during the example of the box mission. You see, explaining modular code is one of those things where a picture is worth most likely well more than 1,000 words. So do the work of doing some graphics, or if you're being lazy, just give the poor guy a whiteboard, because that is how they would really be explaining it to others in real life, with a whiteboard. But instead, make him sit there and just talk on, because that's the limit you put on him, and then cut to corny staged board reactions recorded later as if they were in the same room at the same time, but of course they were not. How do I know they were not? Because they were slated separately. So they went with cheap LOLs over being informative. And that's a disappointment. Now, when they did get a bit more informative on what they were doing going forward, my first note is they should make the hostilities in the Salvage mission be the exception rather than the rule in a safer location like Stanton. In Pyro, of course, gangs will be fighting each other over wrecks all the time. But the main reason the hostilities should be the exception rather than the rule in Stanton is that one of the most common comments about hull scraping is how oddly calming it is. The occasional surprise is great, but don't be constantly harshing the mellow. The next note is that their description of the Salvage mission might soon be obsoleted. Why? Because if there is the potential for trouble showing up, the counter is going to be to immediately tow the wreck to someplace else better protected. The mission feature team plans for Salvage mission had better include considering the implications of the existence of towing, because otherwise towing will break them. And their description did not sound like they had. Towing and salvage are complementary gameplays, as well as towing and repair and towing and mining. The SRV is going to be a very disruptive force in gameplay mechanics when it arrives in the game. It needs to be planned for. But also worth noting in the mission presentation was that there are two types of missions that we were presuming that was in the works, but was not included in their presentation, which means either that they are not actually being worked on, or that they're being worked on by teams other than the mission feature team. The first is the so-called cargo missions, and if they're being worked on by some other team, it may be for the best, because rather than being driven by content designers, the cargo missions presumably will be driven by the dynamic economy, a very different workflow. The other type of mission that was recently teased to the users, but not discussed in this segment, were the investigation missions. I don't know if that is because they aren't being developed this time or being developed by somebody else, or if investigations aren't really lending themselves to the same type of componentization that the other missions are. But they would seem to be similar. One discovery or set of discoveries opens up the other steps. Yes, they aren't packages, but one point of the presentation is that these mission components can be various things. Why not parts of a puzzle? Which brings us another small note. If these things are using different core systems, how about not calling them all missions? Maybe call them cargo consignments rather than cargo missions, or maybe investigative assignments, salvage commissions, exploration expeditions, bounty warrants, or rescue calls. English has a lot of nice words. Maybe use more of them, just like not using quantum for so many unrelated things. Then on Friday was Star Citizen Live on engineering gameplay. And I was so pleased with the return of a serious question and answer structure rather than an hour of just chilling out in front of the cameras. I also watched it with some anticipation because I had done a video about the engineering system, specifically about applying it to small ships. And so it was frustrating that they danced very close to addressing some of those things I talked about in this video, but didn't quite hit on them. One thing that I think they did is that they went too far in the opposite direction from the complaints of the prior weeks inside Star Citizen. In the ISC, they went too far in saying that you had to pay attention to engineering gameplay. The SCL went a little too far in the direction of saying you can ignore it if you want. Sure, you can avoid tweaking your components and go with the standard settings, and you will be able to just pay for the station and maintain your craft. But the thing that you are going to be unable to avoid paying attention to is malfunctions when they occur. They did say that malfunctions will be not too frequent, but you are not going to be able to say, hey, I don't want to care about engineering, so my stuff will never break or be damaged. No, your stuff is going to break, and when it does, the engineering gameplay is going to be dumped unwelcome in your lap. Which I guess means that the one essential question from my prior video that was not asked or answered in the ISC was, if in a single-seat craft your engine malfunctions while in atmosphere, do you have any choice other than bailing out? If it turns out that your only choice is bailing out, then it would be really handy to finally have some sort of parachute-like device. Finally, some notes about Stella Fortuna, the St. Patrick's Day ship sale holiday. And in the annual calendar ship sales, Stella Fortuna is in the third tier, along with Coromore, Red Festival, Luminali, and such. These put ships on sale that are not normally on sale, but with nothing special in terms of either price or insurance. No discounts, only 6 months insurance, etc. So it might represent an upgrade opportunity if you have a ship with 10-year or LTI insurance to act as the start. But if you really want green skins enough to pay real money for it, then just buy the paint and get the ship with 10-year insurance at the ILW or IAE sales later in the year. Or buy the paint and get the ship with in-game credits. Now for an update on our giveaways. First, we have the 10, now 11,000 subscriber thank you for the LTI Hull C, the clockless cargo container carrying craft, to be given away when the sea goes flyable. And then there is the annual Big Ship giveaway for the winner's choice of the Galaxy Complete, the massive modular mining moving medical machine, or the Benu Big Box Bargain Bazaar, a.k.a. the Merchantman. One entry per video for both of these drawings. Just be a member and get entered automatically, or subscribe and comment with the secret word. And the secret word for this video is the title of the Dr. Seuss book I referenced. Now, for my members, the voting thread has already gone up for the winner of the Big Ship Landing Contest. If you are a member and the YouTube algorithm hasn't put it in your feed, then go to the channel page and select Community. Then add your votes to the comments on that thread. Fly safe, keep it real, and I'll see you in the verse. This is Danny Raymond for Ray's Guide.